Right, so you have to coach me in through this. I don't quite know how you do this, so.
Yes, I'm just updating the title right now.
Good. I'll wait for a sign from you.
Yes. All right, Chris, I'm inputting the title and description, but if you want to update that and make it better, I'm sure there are improvements to be made.
Sure.
Yeah, that's what I'm seeing. We're streaming live on Facebook. Hi, Facebook.
Yep. Look good, Pierre.
All right. We're 1 minute early. Well, no, depending on which clock you look at.
I know.
Awesome. Okay. And let's see, I've got Pierre's video pinned, so ideally he will be the primary image so that we're not bouncing back and forth. We'll see. All right. Well, welcome everybody. Thank you for joining us. So many of you registered ahead of time, and I know that a lot of you will be watching this into the future. And I'm excited that First is getting better and better at these virtual events. I think we've done 5 in the last 10 days now. So it's a very busy Ichthyosis Awareness Month here, and wherever you are, you're a part of it. So it's kind of nice that there is absolutely no upper hand in physical location at all. We are all virtual. So we've got a wonderful calendar of events for you. This is our second week in. We're doing Member Monday, live streaming tonight. And then next week, we have a talk with Dr. Amy Paller, one of the world's leading researchers in ichthyosis, who's going to update us on what's new in ichthyosis research. And we've got just a number of wonderful events all month long. If you didn't get a chance to catch it, last Friday we had a live concert event for a group of performers that do a show they call Release the Butterfly, and it is fantastic. So I highly recommend to play that back if you haven't seen it yet. You can put it on in the background and just listen to it while you're making dinner or going about your day, and I think you'll find it inspiring and incredible. So lots of amazing things happening for Ichthyosis Awareness Month, and that brings us to tonight with Pierre Brault joining us all the way from Canada. And the exciting thing about Pierre is that he actually was selected. He won our speaker competition for our planned conference for this summer. So the National Family Conference, Pierre was to be the keynote speaker. And there were a number of amazing qualified applications, and Pierre actually won. So we are thrilled to meet Pierre for the first time. Pierre has never met a person with ichthyosis before. And so we were very excited for this. So we're going to do a little bit of a preview. Pierre is still slated to speak at the conference. It's just 12 whole months later, as we are learning how to adjust to everything in this post-COVID world. So my name is Denise Goss. I am on staff at First. Prior to being on staff, I was on the board for 4.5 years. And I have with me tonight Chris Wassel, that I know most of you know.
Hello, everyone. Glad to be here.
So we are going to try to manage this as best we can. If you have questions, you can post them to Facebook in the live stream sort of chat box. And if you're on Zoom, you can change the view. You can explore the view options so that you're looking at whatever view best suits you, depending on what you're accessing us. What you are using to access us, it might look different. But there's also a chat feature on Zoom. So if you are on desktop, for example, if you hover over the bottom bar, there is a box that says chat. You can click on that, and then you can message others individually, or you can message the whole group if there's something that you have to share, or a question, you can send a question to Chris or myself or to the whole group, and we will try to get to you when it fits in with the conversation. So these Member Monday conversations are just that. It's a chance to get to know everybody and the amazing members of the FIRST community. We all know that ichthyosis affects our lives in so many different ways, and it makes for really incredible individuals with really inspiring life stories, is my personal experience. So I myself have CIE ichthyosis, and I'm thrilled to always hear other perspectives from affected adults, from parents of affected children, and to always hear these stories. So tonight, Pierre is going to address us. We talked a little bit earlier about some of the gifts of ichthyosis and some of the strengths that can be acquired with overcoming, and the ways that ichthyosis has shaped his unique path on life, and how his life path was what it was, and even ichthyosis couldn't challenge it. And so I loved that in hearing his story, that he told me who he was, and he told me about how ichthyosis made that sort of more difficult, but that it was still the same. So he is who he is, and overcoming the fears of ichthyosis and the very real challenges, I think it's something that we can all identify with. So Pierre is joining us from Canada. As I said, he is an actor and a comedian, I think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And
Get to that. I'll be funny in a minute, but you gotta wait.
All right, we are thrilled to have you tonight, Pierre. Everyone seems to be on mute, which is fantastic. If you have any questions or need anything as we go through, feel free to message myself or Chris, and we will help you. So without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Pierre and give you our warm welcome. Thank you for being here, Pierre.
Thank you so much, and thank you, Denise. Thank you, Christine, and welcome or bienvenue to everyone. My name is Pierre Brault, as mentioned. I am absolutely gobsmacked to be here. As mentioned, I've never met anybody with ichthyosis. It's a condition that is just so rare that the odds of coming across it are well, astronomical, really. So to be able to get together like this is a real treat for me. I am obviously disappointed that we couldn't do the conference this year. I was super excited. Free trip to Rhode Island, but I couldn't make it. So I was. I'm very excited about thinking about meeting you all personally next year, hopefully in Rhode Island or wherever. So a little bit about myself. As I said, my name is Pierre Brault. I'm a French Canadian. I was born in Montreal, Quebec, or around that area, in 1962. And of course, back then in '62, there was very little awareness of ichthyosis. So I wasn't diagnosed properly for a good 5 years. Eventually, though, one doctor recognized it right away and said I was diagnosed with ichthyosis epidermolytic hyperkeratosis. I'm not sure what it's called today. The name changes a lot over the last few decades. But I displayed clear symptoms right away. I was placed in an incubator. People didn't know sort of what was going on. Eventually, though, as many of you have experienced yourself, as I got older, I was prone to a great deal of infection. So by the time I was about 7 years old, I had spent most of my time in a hospital, then out of it. And most of that had to do with just straight infections, bullets infections, skin crack infections. And of course, as you know, being young, you just don't have the immunity to be able to fight these off. I guess my clearest memories of ichthyosis back then was the pain that it sort of instilled on a very young, impressionable boy, because there was really literally no treatment. So with this bullosa, it would be perhaps wrapped up in gauze or whatever, and then as soon as it was removed, naturally it would just open up again. So there was a lot of experimentation personally that I had to learn how to deal with the condition, even at an age of 7 or 8. infections were successfully fought with series of antibiotics and things like that, till eventually in my teens, I developed enough immunity that the infections were no longer a problem. Then other things happened. So when I was in school, I was very lucky. In my grammar school, from the second grade to the sixth or seventh grade, I always was with the same kids. So there was never, people accepted me pretty early on. However, it was the leap from grammar school, elementary school, we call it here, to high school that, of course, the great challenge occurred. And I think at this point, we're talking about 1976, 75, 76. At this point, retinoids were coming up. And retinoids, as still used today. In fact, I believe it's what I take today still has some of that, or it's a different kind. But I was one of the first in Canada to take it. Now, a precursor to that, though, was topical retinoids. And these were vitamin A acid derivatives. They were extremely toxic, and I would slather this stuff on. And we're talking about age 13, 14. I would slather this on, and then back then they used a method called occlusion, which was to wrap that after you put it on in saran wrap. So I would be saran wrapped from head to toe in my body with this crappy gel on myself, and I certainly couldn't do anything. I couldn't go to school like that, and it led me, I think, to a great deal of depression. I felt very, very much excluded. What was ironic, though, was I was very popular in school. The reason I was popular was the way I had dealt with this was through a sense of humor. I could make jokes. So if somebody made fun of me, I could easily make fun of them back, and usually better. So people didn't usually pick on me, definitely not in the early grades. But when high school sort of took over, and one is hormones are kicking in, and you're the kid who just looks absolutely different. That's when I think the true depression kicked in, and I don't think I really need to explain probably to any of us what that means. I think one of the advantages that it's given me is an insight into the idea of body image. What are we supposed to look like? Well, in my case, I look like somebody who has a continual sunburn. It just continually flakes off. However, no one around me has this. No one on television has this. No one in the world has this that I know of. Certainly not in my world, not in Montreal, not in 1970 something. So I have to say it brought me further and further down, even though as I progressed through high school, I was still more and more popular. We had drama clubs, and I was always the star. I could take on characters in a way that nobody else could. I was a born actor, and people would always wonder, how can you possibly do that? How do you go on stage and be someone else? And I probably don't have to tell you what a joy it is to go on stage and be someone else. So I wouldn't just act in a role. I would inhabit it fully, completely, sometimes to the astonishment of other people. And then I would come back and be saddened by the fact I couldn't just act my entire life. So as I went through high school, towards the end of high school, as graduation was approaching, I became more and more afraid. From leaving high school, which was hard enough with the teasing and kids avoiding me because mostly because the topical vitamin A was very smelly, like it just smelled. So it was great. My skin was smooth, but no one would come near me. So kind of what was the point? And what was the point was kind of how I went through probably my last year of high school. A very, very dangerous time in my life. I survived it, but I have to say, only just. And I would say that the difficult times for you or your children will be that period. But I got through. And one of the things that I did is I applied to the community college in the acting program. And I remember how nervous I was to apply. I was probably 16 at the time. And I did the audition and I was accepted right on the spot. And that made me feel wonderful. When I left high school and started in theater school, which was always just basically acting. It wasn't film and television. It was purely stage. I ate it up. I couldn't get enough. I found something different because I started to understand who I was. I could take on characters and be very good at it, but I didn't know who I was. I had survived, as I said, my adolescent years, but only just. And I refer to suicide attempts at this time, not ones that people recognize, but let's just say I brought myself very close to the edge. No one knows how close, but close enough. But now I was in a different mode. I was now in theater school, and in theater school, I wasn't a freak because everyone was a freak in theater school, and everyone kind of is. This is where I met my first gay friends. I met artists. I met people who studied different things, people who didn't care about my skin or what I looked like. And then I started to thrive. And from there, I took on my studies for a good 3 years. I moved directly to Toronto, where I started working in film and television in a very quick way. And then worked producing behind the camera. And at the same time, I would spend my nights going to the stand-up comedy clubs, because that comedy that I developed as a safety net, as a defense mechanism, rubbed off. I never lost it. So I would make jokes and write them down, and then I go to the club and I try them out. And again, most people would be very admiring of my fearlessness on stage. And again, it all had to do with ichthyosis. So when Denise says that ichthyosis that I actually overcame a lot to become what I am today, the reality is that's why I am what I am today. It had a very, very definitive effect on my career. And I would not have developed it the way I had I not had this condition. So as an adult now, I live a very, very normal life. If some would say a fairly full life. For example, a lot of us are afraid to travel. I certainly was afraid to travel and didn't do it until in my 30s. But now I've traveled all over the world in situations where in deserts and in jungles and all over the world for months at a time. And I'm not scared. And I think that's what you're going to get from this is a sense of fearlessness, because once you've survived, you know you can survive anything. And finally, before I go on just a bit, the real lesson came a little later in my life. I was working as a video producer. I wasn't particularly happy because I wanted to be a stage actor and work in the arts, but really I needed the money, and I was working as a video producer. My father took ill and with cancer, and he passed away at the age of 55. I think I was about 30 at the time. And I realized how short all of this is, how it's so brief. And I knew then and there that any ideas I had of self-destruction were gone, because it's kind of more like that anyway. So we need to live our lives as full as possible. We have to create the meaning in our lives. Nobody else is going to do it for us. So the gifts that we have is the gifts that are on our body right away. Our ability to heal ourselves. We can do that physically. I put up something on the ichthyosis or the first Facebook page a while ago when I was traveling to Mexico. And just before I left, literally I slipped on some ice, which we have an abundance of here, and flat on my face and scraped the whole front of my face. And you know what I'm talking about. And I went to the airport and everybody thought I had just been beat up and I'm climbing on a plane to Mexico and I'm going, no, I'm fine, I'm fine. So I took a picture 24 hours later and then another one 48 hours later. If you have a chance, take a look, because if 48 hours later, there's not a trace of this damage. My partner here, my life partner, says that's part of who I am, that this ability to heal myself physically has transferred into my own feelings. I don't get as angry as I used to. I don't get as frustrated as I used to. Life doesn't seem as unfair as it used to. So I'm learning and I'm continually, like my skin, regenerating. I thank, would I give it up just to have normal skin? Absolutely, in a heartbeat. That being said, I'm grateful for the insight, the remarkable insight it's allowed me to have, and how it's informed me as an actor and a comedian. And so I guess my message is to let yourself regenerate, let yourself flake off the hurt, the pain. We can heal, and this is part of it. I think that's all I have to kind of say for now. So if somebody wants to take over, if there's any questions or anything anybody would want to know, I'm open to talk about it.
Pierre, I love the idea of the skin being a model for us of letting go, of turning over and regenerating, and a message truly of self-healing, because I think it's a medical condition, and it's so easy to lump it into a category of something negative. Even the word disease, a lot of folks don't like to call it a disease. It is a disease. But the look, it looks like I'm looking at your screen now, Pierre.
I'm trying to fix what I'm doing, but I'm new on this too. Keep going, please. There you go.
That's all right. I think I got it. Okay. So yeah, the idea of it is a medical condition, and if given a chance, we would surely, most of us, I think myself at least, would choose to not have it. But it doesn't make us unhealthy. It doesn't make us less. It doesn't make us worse or worth any less. But it does make life more challenging. And in that, there is value, actually. And we know that overcoming challenge brings resilience and compassion and all these wonderful things that can really lead to a really rich and authentic life. So I've never met a person with ichthyosis who is a fake or a phony. I'll say that.
No, absolutely. And what we present, what people see is a very, very different, is real, and absolutely. That's why I find sometimes that the line of work I'm in is unusual, in that I get paid to pretend I'm somebody else. And it's kind of funny because now I finally accepted myself, and now I get paid to be other people.
There were a couple comments on the Facebook side. I just wanted to share with you.
Yes, please.
The first one was from Jackie, said she loves listening to your story. Another
Thank
one from a father, Brian. He said his 11-year-old daughter has CIE, and hearing this interview has been extremely valuable to me. So,
Terrific. Terrific.
yeah, that's exactly what we're here for, right?
Absolutely. I did want to, I know there's a lot of things that I sort of didn't talk about that I'd like to, that we talked about earlier when we were setting this up. And that is that my mother, very, very strong woman. I was the fourth child, French Canadian family. We just kept going. But I was the fourth, and mine was a mutation, so there was no experience with ichthyosis whatsoever. However, my mother never treated me one iota different than my siblings. I would like to say she treated us, loved us all the same, but she was a very sort of disciplined woman, and she treated us all with respect and dignity, but all of us absolutely the same. So ichthyosis was never an excuse for me. Even when I had to go to the hospital, I was going to the hospital, but only for so long, and then I was going right back to school. So I hated that at the time, resented it at the time. Maybe I wanted more hugs at the time, but ultimately it made me realize that while I am different, I can't think of myself as too special. I'm still part of the world around me. Another thing I wanted to mention was that what it gave me as a performer and as an artist, including a writer, I'm a playwright as well, so I write a lot of characters, obviously, and sort of what they're going through. And the one thing that it has provided me the most is empathy. You know, I grew up in the 60s and 70s. That was my youth, and at that time, there was a great deal of civil rights was front and center. And I'm not sure. My very liberal mother at the time adopted a fifth child, my younger sister, who happened to be Black, and she was a Black girl in an all-white neighborhood. And so we had this very strange dichotomy, this sort of, you know, she was ridiculed for her skin color. I was ridiculed for my skin texture. It was this very, very strange thing. And sort of, you know, obviously educated me a great deal about racism and how we view people, and not just, as I say, their color, but their texture, you know, like, sometimes I would say, yeah, I know it's tough being Black, but you know, it's not easy being pink either.
Or in my case, red. And
Exactly.
it's very flaky.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes.
So I felt that as working in the arts, that I was really wonderfully informed about how other people see things, how other people see me on one hand, but also how they look at themselves. I started to realize that people, you know, I used to complain because I used to take like an hour and a half to take a bath and exfoliate myself. And then, you know, I would go out with some ladies who would take up to 2 hours to get ready to go out. So, you know, like, sometimes it's just a question of how you're perceiving it.
We had another couple comments here. Jackie loved the regeneration analogy. She thought that was so great, and it's a great way to look at things. And also something from Sarah. She said, do you feel that growing up in Canada was an advantage? This Winnipegger thinks it was.
I was about to say, why are you from Canada? Well, as a Winnipegger, you are heartier than me. I'm just a wimp, and I just live in Ottawa, but you know winter more than I do. Here in Canada, we have, I won't pull punches. We have brutal winters that last for a long time, and we deal with cold. One of the ways that we can sort of overcome it is just to sort of embrace it as much as we can. I think that I have an advantage of growing up in Canada, for certainly one thing is universal Medicare, because I think my parents would have been devastated financially, given the amount of time I spent in hospitals as a youth. So by that stretch, I certainly appreciate living in Canada. Other than the weather, I mean, come on, you're in Winnipeg. You and I both know if we had a chance to spend our winters in Bermuda, we would be there. But we don't. We shovel and we grit our teeth and we slather on the moisturizer and we get to it. Thank you, though.
And Diana says, hello from Bermuda. Good evening, all.
Oh, that's not fair.
Thank you. I've been to your lovely beaches, and I've enjoyed your lovely waters, and it's great. It's great for your skin. Oh my God, it's so good for your skin.
Yes, yes. It's amazing how different your skincare regimen can change just based on where you're traveling to. I lived in Detroit and I've lived in New Orleans, and the amount of cream that I had to purchase per month was literally 2 to 3 times more for a colder climate. So the proof is in the pudding, so to speak. And it's just, am I already through that jar already?
Yeah.
That can't be.
Yeah. I'm used to getting those stares at Costco when you're buying 4 giant jars of Vaseline, and you're like,
right.
So we do.
Right.
So
yeah.
We do it.
You can try the 3-gallon tub of coconut oil too. People assume you're running a restaurant.
Yeah, exactly.
We have a couple of more comments here from Brian Stern. He says that he treats both of his daughters the same. The oldest is unaffected. And he tells Bella, who is affected, that the world is not going to go easier on her. We do not put limits on what she can or can't do. We have encouraged her to push her limits and find her own normal, not what others say should be normal for her. And there's nothing she cannot do.
Absolutely. And the ability to be able to just keep pursuing those things. When I was in theater school in my very first year, I was approached by a director that I had a great deal of respect for, and he worked on Broadway, and he was very, very well known and respected in the program. And he took me aside and he said, listen, I'm going to be perfectly blunt with you. You sure you want to do this? Because I'm going to tell you right now, it's going to be like 10 times harder for you. It's going to be hard because of this is the way you look. And I was shocked because I was quite literally, I was 17 maybe years old, and my jaw dropped, and I thought about it, and then I thought, yeah, that's what I want to do. And that's what I want to do. And I did it. Bless his soul, because he said, okay. And he never, ever stopped me from doing it. But he did made me realize I had some challenges ahead of me. I mean, look at me. I'm not Brad Pitt. And sometimes it's difficult for me. That's one of the reasons I work mostly on stage as opposed to film and television, although I do film and television as well. Because on film and television, the camera is so close, and with ichthyosis that any scrape or cut or nick is going to require extra makeup, extra time, and time is money in movies. So on stage, it is easier because you're at a distance from the audience, and most of the time I don't even wear makeup. And so I've managed to be able to cultivate a career as a performer that way, on stage as an actor, in different productions across Montreal, Toronto, and Ottawa area, and film and television work that happens to come through here.
I'm curious, have you ever been discriminated against for having ichthyosis or for your skin tone or texture? Could you tell us about the time that happened?
Oh yeah, I've been on set. I was in one of the movies of the week that there's a lot that are filmed in Canada, and a few here in Ottawa. And I had a very substantial part in one of those films, and one day something happened where I scraped myself, and we all know how that can happen, right? I turned around and boom, I scraped myself, and they had to stop shooting that day, and I was sort of hauled like, why didn't you tell us about this? And I'm like, well, why didn't I tell you about what? You know, what am I supposed to say at the beginning of every movie? I'm going to tell you, hey, by the way, I have ichthyosis or epidermolytic hyperkeratosis with bullosa. Okay, you know, I, I can only be me. So I have been discriminated against that way. Obviously, like any shot where my hands are involved, my hands are loaded with contusions from the years and years of smacking them against here or there or anywhere. So yes, and then of course, even in the if you're an actor, well, that also means you're a waiter too, or a cook, or whatever. So I have been discriminated against in the food service industry. I've been told by one manager that I couldn't continue to work unless I got a doctor's note telling that this was not contagious or dangerous to the general public, and I got the note. You know, so it exists, and of course, I think in relationships, there's been a couple of times where I've been in relationships, and then as the relationship has progressed, and people really start to realize what goes with ichthyosis, that has been like, no, I can't do that. So you really meet the best and the worst, right? You meet people who can be completely obnoxious and rude and not understanding, and you meet people who reach out and they want to know more. Oddly enough, as I say, and my Winnipegger friend will understand this, I come from Canada. Is we're a very, very polite society, and I would literally, very few people would ever ask me what the problem was, right? Like they wouldn't say that. But I remember I was on a film set for one of these movies of the week, and it was an American actor. You would recognize him. I think he was in Northern Exposure or something, one of these shows. And I just met him, and he looked at me and he goes, "Hey, what the hell's with your skin?" And I started laughing. I just thought it was the funniest thing, because Canadians don't do that. They might, I might eventually mention it, and they go, "Oh, I've always kind of wondered about that." But I love the sort of brusque bruntness of it, or just the forwardness of it. What the hell's the matter with you? well, thanks for asking. It's actually ichthyosis epidermolytic hyperkeratosis. So.
Yeah, the being indelicate about it sometimes is great. That was definitely a benefit to growing up with siblings with ichthyosis. We were very indelicate with each other, and our expectations for each other taking care of their skin. That's really funny. There was another question from Facebook. So I guess just before I move on, the Winnipegger Sarah says that when she moved to the States, she was shocked at how freely people ask about her skin, which is interesting. I live in the South. Sarah, I know, lives in the North. And in the South, people stare but pretend like they're not. And so the best thing you can do in the South is to say, "Oh, I see that you're staring at my skin. Would you like to know more?" And then they're immediately like,
right.
You immediately take the upper hand. And so it's funny as you travel, what you experience. And when I've been in countries like Asia, the response is different as well. So it's fascinating, and we have to give people a little bit of slack, because most of them, have never seen this. So
of course, yeah.
Do you have advice for teens and preteens as they come of age where they may face discrimination? What is your advice for handling that?
Well, as I said, my own survival had to do with my knowledge that this wasn't my fault. I grew up in a very religious household. And so this deeply Catholic household, there was no shortage of guilt. And so having this condition and feeling these feelings of almost guilt of having it, that's what the hardest thing is to get through, that it's not your fault and that you're not alone. Um, you know, I've never had this. This is the first time in my life I'm talking to anybody like this about this subject. Um, so already I don't feel alone. So I think that if they can find their own inner strength to get through that critical period of 14 to 17, if they can find that internal strength, whether it is through meditation, whether it is through the arts, whether it is through their own self-expression. And I really think that's kind of the key, is being able to find a mode of expression. You know, I went into probably the one that it didn't make sense for me to go into, but I went into it anyway and miraculously thrived. And I think that's one of the things that we have to do, is to challenge ourselves every day. Now, for example, it might be I learned to play an instrument. I learned to play the guitar. Then I learned to act. I got my brown belt in karate. I did karate for 4 years. I would come home just cut and shredded. I don't mean shredded, I mean shredded. And you know, I would ask myself why I was doing it, and it was simply the challenge. Because a guy who has ichthyosis shouldn't be doing karate or anything that involves any kind of friction with my skin, but I did it. And I think that's the key. And I've seen that on the first website. I've seen members who are going way beyond what I ever did, who are educating the people around them openly about what they have and what they're doing. These are not things that I did. So I think my best advice is find out what scares you and then overcome it or challenge it. So for example, Denise was talking about traveling. I was scared to death to travel and didn't really do it till I was probably in my early 30s. But then when I did, I've been to like 25 different countries, and I'm not going to stop. Well, maybe after, hopefully when this lockdown stops, I'll be on a plane somewhere.
Yeah, I was terrified of getting a pedicure in public and of taking a public yoga class.
Sure.
And in the last 10 or 15 years, I've been trained as a yoga instructor now. So not only do I go to classes, but I teach them. And it's still something to overcome, to touch a student with ichthyosis and to know that it's probably not what they're expecting when you go to correct their downward dog, but to get over that and to know that you are a part of something good for people to see. If people see folks with ichthyosis out there doing things, we're showing them what is possible. And I've had a lot of friends that are differently skinned that say, oh my gosh, I don't have the guts to go do yoga, and I have, no problems with my skin. I don't know how you do it, and that's inspiring. And likewise, we've got members. I love hearing stories from members that are police officers, or we had folks talking about being a dancer and being a singer. All of these gifts that we still have, and ichthyosis almost puts it into perspective how important it is for us to use the gifts that we do have, because we can't just skate by on our looks, right?
Yeah.
I'm just kidding. We can't skate by on our beautiful smooth skin when you're working with this. No, we're set up on a different plane when we begin life. But I think for a preteen and a teenager, if I could tell myself one thing when I was age 13, it would probably be don't hold yourself responsible for looking like you have normal skin. Don't put that pressure on yourself. Don't try. Don't be ashamed. Don't kill yourself in order to cover it up. Wear the shoes you want to wear. Wear the black shirt. Go to the pool party. Don't put it on yourself to pretend like you have normal skin. And to find the confidence to own that is really difficult. So that wasn't where I was as a teenager, but I'm very grateful to be there now.
Yeah, well, we didn't.
One thing I think that helps nowadays is all the support that there is, even through First. I mean, the Facebook groups are really so supportive, and I'm sure you didn't have anything like that, right, Pierre?
No.
So, you know,
And I don't think I heard of First until I think somebody had clipped something from a Dear Abby article.
yes,
and I think people even still talk about this
yes,
Dear Abby article.
yep.
But I know somebody clipped it out for me and sent it to me, and I wrote to First right away, and they sent their literature to me. And I believe I even began writing Janice Swan, who is a First member who may be watching now. And we were pen pals for quite a while before the internet, and now we're Facebook friends. But yeah, it was a real fun. It was phenomenal to discover that there was such an organization, because quite literally, I just didn't imagine I would ever know or of anybody who had ichthyosis.
And there's power in that with getting, you know, like you said, you've never met anyone else. Now you can interact with hundreds, if not thousands of people.
Exactly. And the different forms. Yeah.
Yes. And there is a comment too that they're saying that they're so happy that you have the courage to share your story. It's so important for everyone to hear it. Very thankful for your time. There was another message from Faye. She said she has 3 out of 4 diagnosed as lamellar. 2 of my sons and my daughter, all are grown, 2 with families of their own. None of the grandkids have it. Diana also says that she finds the salt water very, very helpful in Bermuda, but she has to always wash it off immediately following.
Absolutely. Well, yeah. Now I want to join her.
I know, me too.
Yeah, the idea that we have, I'm grateful now. I have a son. My son does not have ichthyosis. However, I like to think that he has a little bit of insight into a certain sensitivity that has come through having a father like this, because he also, of course, knows no one else who has this kind of thing.
Yes.
Right. I love that about the national conference too. The kids who have affected parents getting to see children, and vice versa. The parents of affected children getting to see affected adults. And being able to connect that and to have that immediate understanding of one another is really powerful. So I'm so excited for your first conference. I think it's going to be a really impactful experience for you. We did have another question about specifically your care. So acetretin, I can never say it correctly. I think it's Soriatane is what you're taking. You held the box up. Someone was asking, how long have you taken it and what are its ongoing benefits? It's always a popular question for folks with ichthyosis to find out who's doing what and what's working.
All right, so the great question. I started taking Tegisin in the 70s. Tegisin was the vitamin A acid derivative, basically the first of these drugs. I wasn't supposed to take it. I was 16 years old. I was still growing. I was not supposed to take this drug. Fortunately, I had a doctor who recognized how on the edge I was and said, we may as well give it to this kid because he's not going to live to see his adulthood if we don't give him something. So they gave me this drug. Atretinate I took for about a good 10 years, and it had a dramatic effect. Of course, the danger with it was that it was extremely toxic, just as they are today, especially for ladies of childbearing age who had to be extremely careful with it. So even back then, it was extremely toxic. And the one thing that they had to watch out for was changes in bone density. So I took this for 12 years, and then my bone density began to change. And so they yanked me off the drug. It was devastating to me because this drug had changed my life. It had reduced me to, my bath times down to like an hour instead of 2.5 hours. And it made things a lot easier. So I went without the drug. I must say that was a very devastating period in my life, but I also thought, look, I survived. I'm going to survive again. And I was able to maintain still fairly smooth skin without taking anything for years, even after I got married. And then years ago, I think it was not that long ago, probably about 7 or 8 years ago, I went to a dermatologist because I was starting to get some more bullosa. I was starting to get more in skin infections, which I hadn't had since I was a teenager. And I was in with the dermatologist, quite a well-known dermatologist here in the nation's capital, Canada, here, Ottawa. And she looked at my skin and she said, "What are you doing about that?" I go, "I don't do anything. I used to take a tretinate." And she's like, "A tretinate? We don't use a tretinate anymore. Nobody uses a tretinate anymore." And then she said, we have better drugs now. You can take these drugs." So it had been about 15 years since I had taken anything. And then I started taking Soriatane. I guess that's what it's called. I now take a Soriatane generic. It is, I take 25 milligrams a day. I bathe. I have a bathe every night, but my baths are different. I take 2 different baths. The first bath is an exfoliating bath. I spend about 45 minutes in the water. I exfoliate with these. These are sanding sponges that you would get from a hardware store. The grit is 150 grit. That is as fine, do not get it rougher than that, is 150 grit. And when that is soaked in water, with no soap, no oils, no nothing, because you'll need the friction, then I can gently exfoliate with that. I have tried rougher grits and smoother grits, but this works really great. When the sponge is broken in after it's been used once or twice, then you can actually start to even use it on your face occasionally and gently. We all know what it's like to rub too hard. So if you can be gentle with that. So that's kind of what I've used. I've used so many things over the years because it is, you have to MacGyver it yourself, right? You have to figure out how you're going to do this. So also I've had to deal with, like, for example, losing my hair. Believe it or not, I used to have wonderful locks of hair, and that's all gone. So how do I deal with as I lose my hair? So it's another part of my skin I have to think about for exfoliating. So that's kind of what I do. That's the first bath. The second bath, which would be the next night, is purely an oil bath, and that is done with alpha carry oil. And that is just a simple soaking bath for maybe 15, 20 minutes. So the first bath, 45 minutes, exfoliating with the scrubbies. And the second one is maybe 20 minutes and just oils.
What did you say the oil was? You said alpha carry?
It's called alpha carry oil or carry oil. Basically, it's really just bath oil. So that's what I use. I don't have the product here, but it's I know that here it's called Carry Oil.
So you bathe in the morning and at night?
Oh, either or. Like it's usually just it's usually in the evening. But if I have something I'm doing that day, for example, if I have a show, I will bathe. I'll make sure I bathe well before the show because then I won't look so red by the time I'm on stage. And of course, I do sometimes wear makeup as well, usually just a foundation or a base.
I know we hear from our members all the time. Every single person has a completely different routine that works for them. And I'm sure over time, and it changes, and adding things, taking it away. We do have a comment here from Jessica.
Mm-hmm.
And she was saying she finds that having an I get to attitude helps her when she's down. She said, for example, I get to spend hours creaming to help me feel better and more flexible. I get to spend longer than others in the bath to exfoliate. It makes me smoother. I get to do so much that others with cancer, mobility, many other restrictive conditions cannot do. So she flips it around and it's the more positive attitude that she feels that works for her.
That's remarkable. And of course, we when we were younger, many of us were exposed to hospitals where I saw people with horrible conditions. And now I'm, you don't have to look far to see people who have it worse off than you. And yeah, it is wonderful taking those baths. Oh my God. And it's funny because I do a lot of solo shows. I do a lot of one-man shows. And some of those shows, they require hundreds and hundreds of lines, thousands of words. And sometimes I'll take that bath and memorizing, I'll have my script and I'll just take the pages and wet them and stick them on the walls until my whole bathtub is surrounded by my script and I'm just going through it word by word. So yeah, absolutely. And some of my best creative ideas have come from just lying in the bathtub and, having a good soak. And really, who else gets to feel that? But what really amazed me too was when I was getting those vitamin A acid gel things, those horrible things, there were women who were paying huge amounts of money to get the same thing put on their crow's feet, just to get those crow's feet off. They would use these things as an emulsion to get crow's feet off. So here were women who were, or probably men too, who were paying huge amounts of money to do what I was complaining about, which and that's another thing too, is we have this constant regeneration. We look younger.
Yes.
Like we always look
Sometimes.
young. People, I'm almost 60 years old. People don't know that, and when I tell them, they're usually quite shocked. So and it's because we have this wonderful vitamin A acid peel that's constant. So yeah, look on the bright side for sure.
That's right. Now, Pierre, what was the name of that sponge someone was asking?
Okay, so it is basically, this is I'll hold it up for you if you want to take a snap of it.
Okay.
Okay, so this is it's basically, you would find it in a hardware store in the sandpaper section. It has got a sponge on one side and it has a sandpaper substance on the other. Now this one is almost like sandpaper. Some of them have this kind of blue synthetic sandpaper-ish thing, and that doesn't work. But this is much better, and it really is essentially, as I say, sandpaper.
What was the grit on it, you said?
The grit is 150 very fine grit. I want to show you that again. Sorry, there we go.
Okay, thank you.
150 very fine
That's
grit.
great.
And I think they can have up to 200 grit. So if you can find that. But again, my caution, be careful to start, because it's really easy to go crazy on it. And then, of course, you know, only after you get out of the bathtub and you find these patches that you've overdone. But it is very, very good for elbows, knees, behind, and also neck and behind the ears, of course, which is always a problem, scalp, those kinds of things.
There was also a question.
Wonderful.
I'm sorry. Go ahead, Denise.
I was just going to say it's the ingenious of, you know, repurposing things for ichthyosis care is always so fantastic to share stories with. And that sounds like a really well-priced alternative to some of the more expensive exfoliating products that are out there. So I believe what you're using it's for preparing walls for painting. Is that
absolutely
the original use? Okay.
Yeah, and they are literally called sanding sponges, and you'll find them in the hardware store. And as I say, you can find them either like this. Sometimes they're two-sided, sometimes they're larger. This is quite a small one, but sometimes they're much larger. And after you've used them once or twice or three times, they become a bit smoother. And as I say, then you can start to gently use it on your face occasionally, because you know, that's the thing, is it's constant, right? I shave today, and you know, by tomorrow I still need to exfoliate constantly. So so I find that this helps quite a bit.
Have you had any experience with a micro silk tub ever?
With a what tub? Sorry?
Micro silk tub? That was a question someone had. No?
No,
Okay.
I'm sorry. I'm not even sure what that is.
They're nano bubbles.
Oh,
Real
okay. All right.
tiny bubbles, yeah. But they were just wondering.
No, I have noticed differences between soft and hard water. And sometimes I will put salt in the bathtub, but mostly the baths, I try to keep everything out for the exfoliating part. So again, no oils, no soaps, because I need the friction. And sometimes I can even do it with the palm of my hand, right? Where it's just, there's enough of it. And as long as I can find that friction point. But if there's any oils, and oils will also ruin these. So don't use these with oils or soaps, or I think you can use them with soaps, but definitely not oils, because it doesn't come off.
Right.
And then sometimes during this part, the exfoliating, the 45-minute bath, I will sometimes put a couple of tablespoons of bleach in the water. And I find that helps a lot.
Experimentation.
Absolutely. I've never been shy about trying anything. I mean, you know, my mother was always kind of like that too, you know, let's try coleslaw. Who knows, right? All right.
Right.
So right. Because nobody knows. We all become our own experts in this. And it's funny, because I have heard other people's regimes, and I think, oh no, I can't do that. That wouldn't work for me. And then realize that everybody, as you said, has a different degree of what they have. You know, the different types of ichthyosis. So the approaches everywhere are going to be different.
Right. And the personal preference of what feels better to some. Some don't mind being sticky. Some don't mind glycerin. Some don't mind being dry. It's really a matter of personal preference, and that's part of, it's a big part of the child, I think, going into the teen years. The benefit that they get to own and communicate their care preferences. I think it's an important way to take ownership of your experience, and it's part of, you know, becoming who you are as an adult with ichthyosis.
Yeah, I mean, we take care of ourselves. We know what it's like. We've had those days where, like, I don't want to take a bath. I don't want to exfoliate. I don't want to do that. You know, I don't want anybody to look at me, and I don't want to look at anybody. So I'm going to stay home and not care about this. and you can do that for a while, but let's face it, you become pretty uncomfortable pretty quick. So as the one of the people who wrote in with a question mentioned, it does feel wonderful to take those baths, to come out and feel like, wow, I feel like a normal person. I know it's only going to last for 45 minutes, but I feel like a normal person. And I love that.
Right, right. If only for a 12-hour period, right?
Well, even then, we know it's a continual process, and you kind of have to take, if I may, the Buddhist way, and just say it's like you got to smile through it. I've been so fortunate like that. When I think of it, about almost taking my own life at 15 years old, and now I'm almost 60 years old, and thinking what I would have missed. And the biggest thing I would have missed is the opportunity to prove myself to myself, not prove myself to the world or prove myself to my parents or the doctor or anyone else, but prove to myself that I had the ability to overcome this stupid disease. And again, you call it a disease, I call it a condition, and an unfair condition, but a condition nonetheless. And the more that we can look at it and say, this is nothing, like I have met huge challenges, as you have as well. I know you have as well, and met those challenges and said, I don't know how I got through that, but I did. And I'll get through something else. As I say, I discovered at an early age that it's over like that. And I'm not going to waste the rest of my life worried about how somebody is going to look at my skin. And that has, to me, been the greatest freedom. And even as a result of that, I've discovered the best people in the world. My partner, my son, my friends, my supporters, the people who come to see my plays. I'm extremely, extremely fortunate. And if you are listening to me right now and you're 10 or 11 years old and you're listening to somebody with ichthyosis saying, I can't believe how fortunate I am, believe it. It will be someday.
Well, that is a wonderful note for us to leave on. I think we've had such a wonderful discussion with you. I thank everybody that has come to listen live. I think everyone who will listen to this on playback. You can always email the office, info@firstskinfoundation.org. You can call. We are always looking to build new programs, especially in this really uncharted summer that we are approaching here. We want to make sure that everybody has what they need to stay educated and inspired and connected. And so we are thrilled to have had this evening with you, Pierre, this chance to preview what your speech will be next year. It's going to be a real bell ringer, I can tell.
Well, so, I promise there will be far more jokes. It won't be as somber as this. And I'm looking forward to actually meeting everybody and not just seeing them from 6 feet away, but hugging them and shaking their hands and welcoming them. Yes.
Soon enough. Well, thank you so much to everyone once again.
Thank you.
Tune in next week. I feel like a radio host now. Tune in next week. We have Dr. Amy Paller on Thursday night at the same time, presenting on what's new in ichthyosis research. That's next Thursday. Next Monday, we have a very special guest. My brother is going to be presenting on young adulthood and outdoor experiences. He hiked from Canada to Mexico, affected with CIE through the desert, through glaciers, through snow, for months at a time, and he'll be able to tell us about that next week. Following that, we have Hunter Steinis, who is another actor And so, Pierre, I hope you'll be able to join for that conversation, because it's always interesting to hear what drives people to choose the paths that they do, and how ichthyosis affects us in similar but also in unique ways. So
Wow.
all of that's coming up later on this month. Thank you so much, Pierre. I really
Thank
appreciate
you.
your time.
And just a very big merci to everybody. And I can't wait to see you all next year. Thank you again.
All right,
Have a good
Pierre, if
night.
we want to follow your career, where can we go to see you?
You can certainly see me through Facebook. I have two pages, my personal page and my professional page. And in fact, I'm doing a live stream of one of my plays on Friday at 8 o'clock Eastern time. And you can follow that on Facebook. So feel free to check my Facebook page. That's the one with the headshot of me, and follow the links, and you'll see on Friday there's a live stream. There is already up there a stream from the last show as well. So if you're curious as to what I do, then feel free, by all means.
All right. Thank you, Pierre. If there's ever anything that you need from us too, please don't hesitate to ask. We're so thrilled to share our little stage with you. So thank you very much. Take care, and
it has
stay
been
safe.
an honor. It's been an honor. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
Thank you.
Thanks, Pierre.
Good night, everybody.
Bye.
Bye-bye.